And we're back live, World Star from USRowing headquarters at the Club Nationals. Where'd the thing go? Racing has resumed. 2:30 sharp. Coming down the course now, we have the women's elite single final. Folks, as you know, quite a hectic rain delay. As a result, we'll be running on 5-minute centers all afternoon. 5-minute centers, hot racing. So we have one camera positioned at the dock at the race course, about 1,000 meters in, and we have our second camera here at the finish line. There will be no drone coverage. We are. It's going to be hot racing. We're going to miss the first half of most of these races. We're going to pick them up and show you the results as best we can. Again, 5-minute centers. Most of these races are only 5 or 6 minutes long. So
really? Where's the sound coming from? It's like, I can hear it.
Yeah, I can hear it coming from over there. Yeah. So again, we're going to have quick racing here. We'll pick it up as we come. And in this race here, you're looking at the course looking upstream. So on your left is going to be Rosa Kemp in lane 6 from Sarasota. Lane 5, Savannah Davison from Orion. Lane 4, Miss Philly from Potomac. Lane 3, Asia Chow from BIAC. Lane 2, Julia Longcar from Vesper. And lane 1, nearest to you, Meredith Kisting from Orion.
It's coming from that. I think we hear it. Oh. Let me just check in with people. Just give us a minute, because there were big storm delays, so yeah. So we just need to check on them. I think we're great. Yeah. You can't hear us, right? Okay. Thanks.
How about now?
Can you hear us now?
All right, and a nice race developing. You can see the red blades and the Potomac Star from Miss Chow, or from Miss Philly. She is driving down in lane 4. As we come into the final 750 meters of this race. Nice long and strong rhythm here. Beautiful conditions. Just about as good as it gets here on the Cooper River. Maybe just a puff of a tailwind. Perfectly flat water. Sunny skies. About 80 degrees. Just beautiful out here. There you can see Miss Kemp from Sarasota passing by.
They should have started the next race, but I've got my eye on this one first here. So. Next race is not started.
And it looks like a hot race here. Potomac looks like your leader as we come into the final 500 meters. From my view, I would say it's Potomac, lane 4, and then Miss Chow, BIAC, lane 3. Those are your leaders in this grand final of the Women's Elite Senior Single. And hold the phone on the outside lane, lane 6, Miss Kemp from Sarasota. She's really pouring it on here. She wants to get onto that medal stand. It still looks like Miss Philly from Potomac and Miss Chow from BIAC. Those are your top two. Behind them, quite a race developing. How about these conditions, folks? What a beautiful afternoon to turn into after quite a rain delay. And as we come into the final 250 meters of this race, Michaela Philly from Potomac in the red uni with the red blade. She's leading the pack. Right behind her, Miss Chow from BIAC. She's in the silver medal position. And on the outside in lane 6, it's Miss Kemp from Sarasota. As we come to the line, it will be Miss Philly from Potomac, followed by Miss Chow from BIAC. And on the far side in lane 6, Rosa Kemp from Sarasota will take the bronze. Great racing here as Miss Longcar, Miss Kisting from Vesper, and Orion respectively round off this grand final. All right, and we'll take you right back up to the top, just like that. Already in progress is the men's elite single final. Lane 1, Mr. Pfeiffer from Penn AC. Lane 2, Mr. Northrop, unaffiliated. Lane 3, Mr. Bernstein from Penn AC. Lane 4, Mr. Cardno from OKC. Lane 5, Mr. McMillan from Michigan. And lane 6, Mr. Ryan from Undine. Again, lane 1, nearest to the shore. Lane 6, farthest from the shore. So those of you watching on the big screen, lane 6 on the left of your screen, lane 1 on the right of your screen. And it looks like lanes 2 and 4 are your early leaders, along with lane 5, not letting up 2, 4, and 5. That's Mr. Northrop, Mr. Cardno, and Mr. McMillan. They have started to separate as we come through 1,000 meters. As the camera starts to pick them up, we'll get a better view. Again, hot centers this afternoon, 5-minute centers, so even in these longer races, a lot of overlap. We have 2 races on the course at a time, much of the time, and especially as we get into these faster boats, there's going to be very quick turnaround here. So we have 2 cameras, one just past 1,000 meters at the Canoe Club and one at the finish line for you. All right, nice shot there of lane 2, Mr. Northrop rowing unaffiliated with those bright red blades with the Potomac Star. He's having a nice piece here in lane 2. Also on the outside, lanes 3, 4, 5, and 6. It's a tight pack here in the final of the men's elite single. Racing for the medals here as all crews are starting to close in on the final 500 meters. Really tight pack, as you can see there. It looks like lane 2, Mr. Northrop, he's starting to separate as we come into the final stretch here. But still a lot of contact. A lot can happen in this final 500 meters.
And now approaching the last 250, the men's elite senior single final with Edward Northup of unaffiliated leading and anyone's race for second, just starting to cross into that red buoy line. So we'll see exactly how this race has developed over the past couple hundred meters in a moment. And a very nicely and tightly packed field here in the last 150 meters.
Look at Luke Ryan on the outside, lane 6, trying to sneak onto that medal stand. Really sneaking up on the outside there. I don't know if they have a great view of him in the center of the course there, but it looks like we've got 4 or 5 boats looking to get on that medal stand as we come into the final 20 strokes here. Who has that last gear? It looks like Edward Northrop rowing unaffiliated, lane 2. He's your leader. Behind him, it's anybody's guess. Lane 4, Mr. Cardno, he's coming up. Lane 3, Mr. Bernstein, he's coming up. Lane 1, Tom Pfeiffer, he's pouring it on. And about 15 strokes to go. Lane 6, Luke Green, he's coming on. Here comes Pfeiffer, here comes Bernstein. Really tight at the line. It will be Northrop. He will take the gold. Lane 4, Mr. Cardno, he will take the silver. And lane 6, Mr. Reen will take the bronze. What a fight there at the end. What a great sprint. What a great race from all our boats here.
Very
Wire to
exciting
wire.
final
What a
five.
tough race. Takes a lot of mental stamina, too, to just hang in there in a single when you're all alone for the whole 2,000 meters there after a long delay. Racing a lot to be able to close off the week with a great race like that. Hats off. All right, and just like that, back up to the top, already in progress, about 600 meters in, we have our women's elite lightweight single final. On your screen, left to right, you will have Emily Mullins from Lincoln Park, Kristen Kane from Potomac, Mary Wilson from the Foundry, Carly Zanetta of St. Catharines, Mary Mosier from Penn AC, and Frederica Pala rowing unaffiliated. You know what's great, Colleen, especially now, is right now I'm looking down the course. It looks beautiful, and no geese. I see zero geese. Actually, I see one there. You know, it'd be great if – it's too bad that we took the drone down, because I think for the next regatta, maybe an armed drone will be more appropriate than a video drone, just to take out some of these animals.
The storm scared them away, I think. I don't know. They all marched onto the highway. They're annoying the cars now.
Oh, well, you know what? We're going to be driving home on the Turnpike or the Garden State, and it's going to be looking like there's someone having a pillow fight.
Oh, man.
All right, coming in about 1,000 meters here. We'll take a look through the binoculars and see what we can tell you. Lanes 3, lanes 4, starting to push, but it's very tight early on in this race. A lot of competition here. I'd give it to lane 3 from here. That's Carly Zanetta rowing out of St. Catharines, home of the Canadian Henley, the second greatest summer regatta after US Rowing Club National Championships. It's great that they come down and, you know, can pick up some pointers. But Miss Zanetta having a great race representing the great historic club of St. Catharines up in Canada.
And she really looks to be out on her own here. Again, a bit challenging with the current shot, but
yeah, really driving along. Here on the screen here, you can see lane 1, Miss Paula. She's thundering along in lane 1 here. Still a lot of contact. It looks like just on the outsides, lane 1, lane 6, starting just to slip, just to touch. Not out of it by any stretch of it. As the center of the field is starting to push away, especially lanes 3, lanes 4. That will be Miss Zanetta, Miss Wilson of St. Catharines and the Foundry, respectively. Those two really starting to establish themselves as the crews to beat in this race.
and a really nice push from Federica Pala now up on your screen in lane 1. But a good push at the moment too from Carly Zanata out of St. Catharines. So she's just pushing her bow ball out to continue leading this race.
And we come through parallel there. Wow, very good. What a race here developing. Lanes 3, 4, and 1, as you were saying, Colleen. Very, very tight. A lot of race to go still, though.
Just now crossing into the final 500 meters. That orange buoy is the 5 to go.
And here we go. Inside of the last 500 meters, it's time to decide what color medal you're thinking if you're in that pack. It still looks like lane 1, lane 3, lane 4. Those are the crews you want to beat if you want to get on the medal stand. Still very tight, 1 to 6, but 1, 3, and 4. That will be, sorry, Miss Paula, Miss Zanetta, and Miss Wilson. Those are your leaders as we come into the final 40 strokes of this race. All right.
Into the last 250 here.
All right, and it looks like lane 1. That's Miss Paula. She's pouring it on. She's trying to challenge lane 3, Miss Zanetta from St. Catharines. Lane 4, Miss Wilson, has dropped off the pace just a little bit. She's still in that medal position, but it looks like it's going to be Lane 3, Miss Sinetta at this point. She is your leader as we come into the final 20 strokes of this race for the gold medal. But here comes Miss Paula, Lane 1, rowing unaffiliated, trying to make sure that this medal stays in the States. She's pouring it on, 42 strokes a minute. Lane 3, Zanetta, though, she looks calm and in control. And as we come up to the line, it looks like that order will hold. And crossing the line now is Lane 3, Miss Zanetta. She will win the gold medal here. And a late sprint from Lane 4, but it looks like Lane 1, Miss Paula, will hold off Lane 4, Miss Wilson. Indeed, she will win the silver, and Miss Wilson will take the bronze. Fantastic race out of these ladies. And we'll take you right back up the course now. Coming down about 500 in already, we have the men's elite lightweight single final. On your screen from your left to your right, that's Lane 6 to Lane 1. Mr. Harding from New York Athletic Club. Mr. Boyle from Osprey. Mr. Geisbrock from St. Catharines. Mr. McAdam, rowing unaffiliated. Mr. Loy from Orion. And Mr. Martinez from Osprey. Looks like these guys are really pouring it on. Looks like a tight pack here. Lanes 1, 3, and 5 starting to separate just a little bit. 1, 3, and 5. That's Mr. Martinez, Mr. McAdam, and Mr. Boyle starting to separate.
And already now in the third 500.
Yeah. All right, tell them downstairs. Right here.
In the second half of the race, in the third 500, a nice shot right now of Hugh McAdam rowing unaffiliated. But Kyle, as you said, lanes 1, 3, and 5, as far as we could tell, in the second 500 were on the move. We'll get a sense as these guys get a little bit closer. Definitely a race going on.
Wow.
In the back of the pack, though. Look how tight that is right now.
Mr. Hugh McAdam, though, starting to really throw down. He's done a lot of training up at Craftsbury. He's represented the United States at a few international regattas. A lot of experience there on the lightweight singles side. Experienced rower himself, and then what a pack behind him. As you saw when we crossed parallel there, not much to choose between 4 or 5 boats there. And they're all starting to really wind it up as we come into the final 500 meters here.
Hugh McAdam, unaffiliated, continuing to lead, but as we saw earlier, a very tightly packed field. So we'll see if that's spread out at all. If anything, though, I would guess it's gotten even closer now as we come towards the last 250 with just about 300 meters to go.
Lane 1, Mr. Martinez, he's bumped the rate. He's pouring on. He wants to make sure that he's on that medal stand. And it looks like he has slipped into that silver medal position as we come into the final 30 strokes here. It's still McAdam. He's long, he's under control. Stretching it out here in the final 30 strokes.
And with such a lead over the rest of the field right now, Hugh McAdam, again, rowing unaffiliated, a really nice lead. It's going to be a race for silver right now, and pretty tightly packed between lanes 6, 5, and 4.
This is going to be tight. It looks like we're going to have McAdam. He's going to win. He's going to take the gold here, but behind him, it's anybody's race for the silver and the bronze. Lane 4, Mr. Geisbart from St. Catharines. He's in the silver medal position, looking for bronze. Lane 1, Mr. Martinez. Lane 5, Mr. Boyle. And it looks like lane 5, Mr. Boyle will take the bronze. So 3, 4, 5 there. McAdam, Geisbar, and Boyle. That's your gold, silver, bronze in an exciting final to the men's elite lightweight single. And we'll rotate the camera back and we'll take you to the race already in progress, the women's elite pair final. It looks like they're about 500 meters in here, so as soon as we get the view on the camera, as soon as we have the eye, we will let you know. In this race, we do have lanes 1 to 6, the under 19 women's selection camp, another boat from the under 19 women's selection camp, the Greenwich Crew Composite, Vesper, a third boat from the under 19 women's selection camp, and the Potomac Composite that we have seen racing multiple times today, including a private exhibition at 6:45 a.m.
And I expect we'll see some U19 teammates down on the shore. I hope so. A lot of support and enthusiasm definitely coming from these younger athletes, and definitely well deserved. So lanes 1 and 2, both U19 selection camp boats. In the lane 1 U19 selection camp boat, it's Jenna McRae in the bow seat.
I can hear the audio.
And in the 2 seat, Hannah Shanman.
What?
All we can offer you is maybe some water.
Listen.
I don't know where they hid that cooler, but
Jason, you hear this?
some water around here. All right, help yourself. Yeah.
Our girls are coming down.
They're immune to our voices. They're sick of us.
Yeah, but there's no audio at all.
I just heard you.
That's right.
It's
All right, and here we go. As we come through 1,000 meters, it looks like lanes 2, lanes 3, lanes 4, they're pouring it on. A little bit of wind starting to pick up here. Just a nice, refreshing summer breeze. Nothing to affect the rowing. A little bit of a tailwind too. If anything, these rowers are going to be loving this. It's going to be a catapult down the raceway.
And a nice shot now of lane 3. That's the Greenwich Crew Composite boat with Caitlin S. and Lucy Coven. Some good send coming out of that shell.
Yeah, great pickup. You can see just as the blades go in, that boat surges right out of the water. Nice job from those girls in lane 3 from the Greenwich Crew Composite. Again, a lot of these Greenwich or these U19 girls coached by the legendary junior coach, Miss Liz Trond.
And now in the third 500. So definitely one of the most challenging parts of the race, and certainly in a final where the name of the game is just to get as much water as you possibly can. There's no strategy in shutting down or in lengthening out to a lower stroke rate. So in a final, we will expect to see some great sprinting and great middle thousands as well, which is what we're seeing here. Now the camera picking up lane 4. I see 4 too.
So it looks like lane 3, that's your crew of the Greenwich Composite. They're your leaders as we come up on 500 meters to go.
And now approaching the 250.
Looks like just a little steering issue in lane 1 there. And it appears we may have a scratch in this race too, as I only see 4 boats coming down the pike.
Lane 5 is a scratch.
Finish with lane 5 in, I won't believe you. Although one of the pairs might have moved into lane 5.
All right, and it looks like in the center of the field, that Greenwich crew really pouring it on. They are your leaders.
Again, Caitlin S. and Lucy Coven now looking in control of this race.
Right behind them, it's the crew from Vesper pouring it on, trying to hold off a charge from lane 1. And on the far side, we have the Potomac Composite. Looks like a little bit of steering issues on both edges of the course. But your clear and away leader here is lane 3. That is the Greenwich Composite, a very impressive race leading wire to wire. About 10 strokes for them, and they will win the gold medal in this grand final of the women's elite pair. Behind them, it looks like Vesper. That's the crew from lane 4, Vesper Boat Club. Charging towards the line, holding off lane 1. That's your U19 Women's Selection Camp crew. It will be Vesper who will take the silver medal. And coming up here about 5 strokes from the line for the bronze will be your U19 Women's Selection Camp. A great surge from them at the line here, very impressive. And rounding off the field in lane 6 will be the Potomac Composite.
And taking a look at the lineups for the next race, the men's elite senior pair final. We've got a few Mendota boats, Kyle.
Oh man, there's going to be a lot of competition there. A lot of moving and shaking, and they're already getting after it. It looks like we're coming up on about 750 gone.
So all of these entries come out of Mendota except for lane 2, which is Vesper. So pretty neat.
I'm going to take a guess that Mendota's going to medal in this race.
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe even 2.
I think so.
And it looks like early on, lane 3 and lane 5 pushing their bow balls just ahead, but very tightly contested as we roll in about 800 meters to go.
It's going to be some smack talking on the flight home, I think.
Oh, man. I think that I heard that there was only 4 tickets for the Mendota team to fly back, and the rest had to figure out their own way.
So that's what this is about then.
So you want to make sure you get your bow across the line first and your boat in the trailer so you can catch that flight.
Oh, man. Look at lane 3, the Mendota shell of Kyle McCarthy and Dylan Adams. A really nice send out of that shell. Just behind them, the lane 4 Mendota shell. That's Evan Miller and Kurt Mueller. And those red blades just flying just across the screen here. So all 4 of these Mendota boats in view. 4 out of 5 in this race.
And just like that, about 500 meters to go. Still a great race. All these boats pouring it on, enjoying the tail breeze. Conveyor belt rowing on this course today. The IRA tailwind in full effect. And it still looks like lane 3. Lane 3, the Mendota crew establishing themselves and continuing to walk. Interesting race developing behind them, though, between the rest of the Mendota contingent. As you were saying, Colleen, a lot of bragging rights on the line here, as well as medals, critically.
I would imagine the Wisconsin program probably rows a good amount of pair rowing. I don't know if you know anything about that.
They have that great, beautiful Lake Mendota out there. I'm sure there's a lot of action going on all year round, except when the ice is about 4 feet thick. But even then, you never know.
It's true. It's
Those
definitely
Wisconsin
working
guys,
for
they're
them now.
tough.
Yep.
They'll figure out a way. All right, lane 1 making a move here. Wants to get into the mix, as well as lane 5, still holding strong. But I think it's still lane 3. Lane 3 It could be all Mendota on the medals dock. A lot of hardware going back to Wisconsin this afternoon. And as we come to the line, a late push from lane 5, but it looks like still lane 3. It's all Mendota. All Mendota. Lane 3, your crew of Adams and McCarthy. They will win the gold. Lane 5, your crew of Bogdanov and Stevens. They're the silver medalists. And lane 4, Mueller and Miller, M&M, M squared, they will take the bronze. And in fact, Mendota will go 1 through 5 in this final. Very impressive.
Does that
And
mean
Vesper rounds off the top.
back? Does that mean everyone gets a plane ticket back?
Excellent job on that one. Look at the pair. It's foul number 5.
All right, and back up to the top. In progress, the men's elite lightweight pair.
Great job, Vesper.
On your screen from left to right, we have St. Catharines, Cal Berkeley, Indianapolis, Vesper, St. Catharines, and Riverside. Riverside being closest to the shore and on the right of your screen. Looking through the optics here, it looks like they are about 700 meters in, coming strong towards 1,000. It looks like we may have had a few more scratches in this event. I don't see any crews in lane 5 or in lane 4, but it looks like lane 3 and lane 2 starting to sneak out. But hold the phone and keep an eye on lane 6. Beware of lane 6. Very sneaky on the outside. 2 empty lanes between them and the rest of the pack. A lot of clean, clear water for them out there to be able to do some damage and sneak up on the rest of the field. But as it stands now, I would say lane 3 has the advantage as we come through towards the third 500.
And lane 6, a St. Catharines crew. Zach Whiteley and Noah Van Helvert. Right now, all eyes, at least on the screen, on the Vesper crew in lane 3. That's Nicholas Hutchins and Justin Meeker.
Nice rowing here out of that Vesper crew in lane 3. Just cranking along, trying to keep that boat moving as they come through about 800 meters to go. We're at parallel here. There you see lane 6 out of St. Catharines. They're right in it though. Rowing aggressively.
And now coming into the final 500 meters. I think you're onto something, Kyle. That lane 6 boat, the St. Catharines shell, that's Zach Whiteley and Noah Van Helvert, not going away and definitely in the hunt for medals right now.
We call that the lane 6 sneak attack here at Camden. And uh-oh, it looks like a little bit of a steering.
Out of the Vesper crew.
It looks like that Vesper crew is determined to take to win a 2,100 meter race. But a quick correction and they're back on track. You know, sometimes there is a little bit of intimidation factor too. It's possible that that crew from St. Catharines got a little too close. And you know, Vesper, Philadelphia, a lot of tough, very patriotic Americans. They may have felt that the Canadians were just getting a little too close to them and needed to just be a little blade across the line. All in good fun. And it looks like they've recovered well, and all 3 of those boats are in position to compete for the medals here. As we come into the final 300 meters, I'd say there's not much to choose between lane 6, that St. Catharines crew, and lane 3, the Vesper crew. Vesper really pouring it on. I think they're starting to move away as long as they can stay in the lane. Lane 2, St. Catharines, still in the middle position, but they've dropped off the pace.
Wow, very, very exciting here in the last 150 meters. Vesper and St. Catharines both in the hunt for gold.
Vesper really pouring it on and very impressive. They are on a ping pong course, but man, are they ripping on that handle. A lot of juice on that oar in that Vesper boat. They're pouring it on, determined to win. And it's going to be Vesper. They're going to take the gold medal in this grand final. It's all Vesper as they cross the line. Open water ahead of St. Catharines in lane 6, and the lane 2 St. Catharines crew, just another stroke here. They'll cross the line to round off the top 3 and take the bronze. Very impressive out of that Vesper crew. You know, like we were saying yesterday, sometimes you just have to just yank on it and make it happen. Doesn't matter if you're wobbling all over, taking the scenic route. I believe it was Robert Frost that said take the route less traveled, right?
There you go.
Sometimes that's the way to do it.
I think that's what he meant.
I believe, you know, many people don't know this, but Robert Frost was a great rower.
Fabulous.
Most of
Fierce
his
competitor.
most famous and significant writings were conceived while he was in the show.
Oh, wow.
It's actually
Out of Craftsbury, right?
it's little known fact. In fact, I believe I'm the only one who knew it up until this moment.
Thank you for sharing
So
that knowledge.
it's just great history that you learn here too at the United States Rowing National Championships.
Oh, man. And back up at the start, awaiting the start of the women's elite senior lightweight pair final. So identical event for the women from what we just saw in the men's elite senior lightweight pair final.
And it looks like we're only going to have 2 boats in this race, Vesper and TBC.
Huh.
Although actually, hold the phone. I'm being told that we may have a scratch from the Vesper crew, so we may actually have.
Oh.
We'll have to stand by to see what exactly is going to happen with this race.
So Kyle, in the meantime, tell us about the race that you're rowing this afternoon.
There is a rumor that I will be competing in an 8 as a mercenary for a certain Philadelphia crew, but there's still a lot of logistical things to be worked out. Like your Orion friends were saying, much of it is top secret, so I'm really not at liberty to discuss it.
Oh man, yeah, still too soon. 24 hours later.
Yeah, I believe, Colleen, you were scheduled to compete this afternoon, right? What happened with that?
Well,
were you? I believe you were cheating, right? Caught cheating?
You know, Kyle, we posted the fastest time. I don't know if you had a chance to look at that.
That's interesting because, you know, I was looking at the times and you were very fast, but my understanding is that the boat weighed in light, and that is a critical factor in boat speed.
You know what, though? The coxswain weighed in heavy, so
Wow. Oh,
I
wow.
think you should be able to make a trade there.
I'm glad your words, not mine. I also heard that there was a rumor that there was a propeller put underneath the boat.
Oh, no.
And that I was actually told by a source who's, I don't want to say her name, we'll just call her Colleen S. That's too obvious, actually. We'll call her C. Seville. She said that no one in the boat was actually pulling that hard,
my
so
God.
she had to attach a mechanized propeller to the boat in order for them to
Oh
move
my
on from the
God.
time trial.
Oh, man. That's exactly the opposite of what I said. Like everyone, hey, let's just tweet at USRowing.
What a beautiful afternoon here, though. You know, my understanding is some people had to get out of here early if you had a few scratches, but man, if you stuck around and hung it out, good for you. Beautiful afternoon to enjoy. What else were you going to do anyway Sunday afternoon? You're probably going to go home and watch Netflix or something
right.
and just waste the afternoon. So, I mean, it rains, so you can't cut the yard. You can't do yard work.
No,
It's hot, you know.
you gotta watch rowing.
So great to be out here. And we have a start in the next race, the women's elite senior double. So the women's elite lightweight pair. Not exactly sure. It looks like we had a scratch. There was only going to be one boat. You know, whatever happened, over. No good. Not happening. Not going to happen. We're on to the next one. Women's elite senior double. On your screen, from your left to your right, we have the Fairmont Composite, Orion, Vesper, OKC, and Orion. I tell you, this Orion, it's like they have just infected this regatta. Infected, that's a bad term. They have
Elevated.
taken over this regatta just
there
by
we go.
dominating the performance, and it's quite impressive, so good for them. Also, OKC, a lot of great stuff coming out of them,
Yep.
and then Philadelphia, Fairmount, and a lot of other great crews. Vesper, they all, Penn AC, all well represented here at the USRowing 2018 National Championships. Day 5, the Sunday racing, all medal finals here this afternoon. And as we take a look through the scope, it looks like lane 2, lane 4, lane 5, lane 6. They've pushed out just a touch. Lane 2, that's OKC. Lane 4, that's Orion. And lane 5, that's another Orion boat. And lane 6, Fairmount. They are really starting to pour it on. Still anybody's race at this time, though. And as they start to come into view on the camera, you can see these elite women really starting to pour it on, and the double here showing some nice speed. Again, just a light tail, really, really favorable conditions for some really ludicrous speed this afternoon. They are pushing the red button here and really activating those afterburners early on and really hitting it hard. Taking another look here. And lane 1. That is the Orion crew of Miss Shaw and Miss Hopkins. They are really starting to get into the party here as well. As you can see on your camera, having a great row over there on the shore side. So if you're down there, make sure you give them a holler.
And Emma Hopkins we will see a little bit later again in the Women's Elite Senior Quad Final at 2:46. So as we've said all along, a lot of these athletes just doubling up events, and what a treat to be able to double up in finals. So great to see Emma Hopkins out here, and we'll see her again in just a few hours.
I tell you what, I hope most of these athletes aren't flying home, or their checked baggage might be a little over 50 pounds with all these medals some of them are hauling in.
Through the 1,000 now. A nice shot of the Orion crew out of lane 1. Again, that's Emma Hopkins and Lauren Shaw.
And don't count out lane 4. Coming onto your screen now, the Orion crew of Miss Springer Miller and Miss Regathi. They're really pouring it on here, and it looks like they have taken the lead as we come through parallel. It's the Orion crew of Miss Springer Miller and Miss Regathi of Poughkeepsie pouring it on here, leading the pack as we come into the final 750 meters of this elite women's double final.
And a nice push from lane 6 to Fairmount Composite, keeping their bow ball as close as they can to those two Orion shells, maintaining contact there. But now with about 500 meters to go, it'll get interesting as we approach the last stretch of this race.
Yeah, Colleen, as we come into the last 500 here, a lot of action, a lot of blows to be traded. As there's some jockeying to get onto that medal stand, it still looks like the Orion crew pouring it on strong. Very tight behind them, though. It looks like we have 4 or 5 crews all contending for the medals at this point as we come into the final 40 strokes of the race. Very exciting. Lane 1, that's your Orion crew of Miss Shaw and Miss Hopkins. They want to get back in it. It's a lot of Orion action going on here.
And just about 250 to go.
Very impressive. It looks like lane 1 really bringing up the rate. Is it enough to catch the lane 4 crew? Lane 5 on the outside. It looks to be third. It could be all Orion on the medal stock here. All Orion as we come into the final 30 strokes here. On the outside, lane 6, the Fairmount Composite. They're trying to get onto the medal stock. Sam Stitt, red courtesy phone, please. Red courtesy phone. And in the final 20 strokes, it looks like it's going to be the Orion crew from lane 4. That's Miss Springer Miller and Miss Regathi from Poughkeepsie, the Queen City of the Hudson River. They will hold on here. They'll be your gold medal winner. Right behind them, very hot, 2 Orion crews, lane 1,
Wow.
lane 5. And on the outside, the Fairmount boat coming up. And it's going to be lane 1, then lane 5 for your silver and your bronze medal. Outstanding racing, all the crews. Orion goes 1, 2, 3 in that elite women's double final. Very impressive. And now we'll turn it over to the men's side of the elite senior double.
It's going to be a nice photo for the boathouse.
It will be. And a lot of these guys just raced in that men's elite single final less than what, 30 minutes ago?
Yeah.
So they're doing a full pull just to get back up to the starting block. So very impressive, a non-stop afternoon for them. Folks, again, just remember, we still have all our vendors down here. Most of them are still, they've weathered the storm. They've persevered. They're hanging tough down here. We have the US Rowing tent. They've got fans, they've got chairs, they've got sunscreen. Again, that sun's coming out. You do not want to get burned, believe me. You do not want to get burned this afternoon. The sun can penetrate the clouds.
But you know where you can get sunscreen? Where can you get
USRowing.
sunscreen? At
It's
the
an
US
automatic
Rowing
dispenser.
tent.
There's no buttons to touch, no germs exchanged. It's a great setup they have down here, and we have a lot of great vendors still hanging around, a nice crowd building down here at the grandstands. It's a beautiful Sunday afternoon here.
You can get a US Rowing sticker down there too.
And it looks like we have a restart in this men's elite double final. Not sure exactly what happened, perhaps a false start, but it looks like we are having a restart in this men's elite double final.
Think it's the geese? I think it's the geese.
It
out
better
there.
not be those geese, I tell you what. We really got to do something about these geese. As I said yesterday, they're an invasive species. I was actually talking to, there was a fine gentleman helping with the parking here this morning. We had a great discussion about the geese and all the problems that they cause. And he actually said that they're really not even Canadian geese anymore because they stay.
Oh,
They they've set up shop and they're kind of anchored in here.
Should we
they
ask
won't
St.
leave.
Catherine's about them?
That's true too. I think that we should make sure that next time St. Catherine's comes to Club Nationals, which we love to have them, we encourage them to come down, but perhaps checking their luggage, second screening at the airport, maybe just to make sure that there's not bringing in any live animals, or the trailer, maybe spray it down with some bleach as they cross that border to make sure that none of these disgusting geese can really get down.
Man. And we have a start in the men's elite senior double. Lane 1, Potomac. Lane 2, Penn AC. Lane 3, Orion. Lane 4, Oklahoma High Performance Training Center. Another Penn AC boat out of lane 5. And lane 6, Hanlon Composite.
You know, that Penn AC boat out of lane 5, that's Ian Lutzow and Thaddeus Babiak. They won that intermediate double this morning, intermediate men's double. So we'll have to see if they're able to hang tough and how they fare in this elite final this afternoon.
Yeah, we had him up here for an interview. I
We
think.
actually did. We had an interview with Ian, who, man, I thought Thor had come up the stairs there. That guy was huge. I was ready to hire him to be my bodyguard. And then we had Thaddy Daddy, the legendary Thaddeus Babiak of Virginia. He came up and they gave us some nice little talk there. So that was great. We'll see them coming down lane 5 here. That'll be on the left of your screen, second from the left. Also in this race, we have Mr. Thomas Pfeiffer, who just competed in that men's elite single final. He's in lane 2 with Mr. Bernstein representing Penn AC as well. Mr. Sean Hall coaching those guys, doing a great job, really breeding a tough group of racers down there in Philadelphia. And it looks like they're coming through about 500 meters. And I'd say lane 3, lane 5, lane 6. Perhaps your early leaders, but very close, 1 to 6, a tight pack. That Orion, man, I can't look anywhere without seeing them in the medal stands.
You know, I'm trying not to be biased, so I'm glad you're saying it and not me.
Well, we really can't have you biased, too, because you already cheated in this regatta. It's just, you know, we're going to have to call on an ethics officer.
I'm kicked out of the commentary team for unethical behavior.
So let's take a look over. Let me put the optics on lane 5. It looks like Mr. Babiak and Mr. Lutzow having a nice piece here. Thaddeus, you know, Thaddeus is a very good friend of mine. I have to say I am very biased in this race. Thaddeus and I lived together for a while.
Aww.
Thaddeus is a personal trainer in Philadelphia. I believe he does everyone from young kids to we call them special populations. And he writes training plans. He does physical therapy, training. He's your man in Philadelphia if you wanted to look jacked and tan this summer. It's still not too late. Lane 3, that Orion crew really pouring it on here.
That Orion crew is Liam Casey in the bow and Ryan Allen in the 2 seat. Again, training out of Saratoga Springs, New York. Now, just moving through the 1,000, I believe.
They look very comfortable here as they come onto our screen here. Obviously working very hard, but making it look very easy as they chug along down this course, coming into the third 500, looking long and relaxed as they lead this pack in this men's elite double final.
And a beautiful shot now of the Orion crew in lane 3. A lot of power coming out of that shell. Really nice send in between strokes. Get a better sense of the rest of the field here in just a moment, but now we see the lane 4 shell. That's the OKC Training Center.
And it looks like in lane 5, it's Lutzow and Babiak in that bronze medal position. Big Lurch throwing down. Along with, it's Thor and Lurch in lane 5. And I don't know if you guys heard that, but the referees, they're already talking about a photo finish in this race as we wind up coming into the final 500 meters of this men's elite double, one of the most exciting races of the day. It's still Orion. It's Orion in lane 3, but hold the phone on lane 1. Lane 1, your Potomac crew, they've bumped it up. They want to get into this thing. Coming in hot and fast on the inside.
And just approaching the last 250 now. Orion continuing to lead. Less than 200 meters to go.
That Potomac crew on the inside, they've bumped the rate. They're spinning their wheels like a 67 Chevelle. But it's still Orion. The Orion crew in lane 3. Very strong performance, wire to wire. But here we go. Everybody's tight. I think there's contact 1 to 6 as we come into the last 250. Who has one more gear? I'd say we have 5, maybe even 6 crews ready to medal with 20 strokes to go. It will be Orion. They're your leaders, really pouring it on, stepping away even more in the final 10 strokes. Behind them, though, very tight, very tight. Lane 4, OKC. Lane 1, Potomac. Potomac pouring it on. But will it be enough? Lane 5, Penn AC wants to get in it, and it's going to be Oklahoma with the silver, and Potomac will take the bronze. Very nice racing overall. A tight field, 1-6. That was one of the best races we've seen all week here, and an outstanding performance by all of those men's doubles. And next we'll take you right up, already about 500 meters in, we have the women's elite lightweight double final. All right. And the next one here we have left to right on your screen, the Vesper double, a second Vesper double, SoCal Scullers, Penn AC, Y Quad Cities, and Michigan. Again, Y Quad Cities, we've seen them show up in a lot of these races today too, especially in some of these smaller boats. Great program growing out there, a lot of good things happening, especially in these smaller sculling boats. Very impressive development happening out there. All right, and it looks like we're coming into that third 500 here, Colleen. And looking through the scope, it's a tight field. Man, not a lot to choose between these boats. Lane 5, lane 3, lane 1. I'd say those have a slight edge, but everybody competing for the medals here.
And a lane 7, it looks like. So this is a 7-boat final.
That's correct. We did have a protest upheld so that a crew was able to race on a lane 7 in this event. Again, another fine example of how we can all work together with the officials and make sure that we can rectify any situations that happen on the water. That's great. And as you can see, as we go past parallel, lane 5 really pouring it on.
Wow. Lane 5, that's the Vesper shell. That's Emma Starr in the bow seat, Marilyn Garberg in the 2 seat.
Very impressive here.
And a bit of a spread out field too, I'd say. Maybe a little bit more spread out than what we've seen in some earlier races. Now with just about 500 meters to go. But the Vesper shell at a lane 7 definitely on the move here as these crews now move through the 500 and towards the last stretch of this race. And great to see Y Quad Cities over in lane 2. As we've said, there's a wonderful sculling program out of that program. So that's lane 2. That's Kyra Vanderweel and Morgan Baytol.
And as they come into the final 400 meters, it still looks like lane 3, but watch out for lane 5 on the outside with the sneak attack. Lane 1 also pouring it on. Gonna be close for these medals here.
The Vesper shell definitely making a nice push in the last stretch of this race again. Emma Starr in the bow seat, Marilyn Garberg in the 2 seat. So lanes 5 and 3 keeping an eye on the Penn AC shell in lane 3 and lane 5, Vesper.
Really tight here, Vesper pouring it on. They want to get that gold. But lane 3, the crew from Penn AC, it's a Philadelphia Schuylkill battle here. Who can wind it up one more time? It looks like Vesper is the crew on the move. As we come to the line, it's going to be close, but I give the edge to Vesper. Vesper will be your gold medal winner over Penn AC for the silver. And coming in now will be Orion with the bronze. Or sorry, SoCal Scullers. Look just like the Orion unisuits. That's my mistake. I apologize. The SoCal Scullers with the bronze. A great program out there in Southern California.
And back up at the start, we have a race already underway. It's the men's elite senior lightweight double final. In lane 1, Vesper, lane 2, Osprey, lane 3, Nyack, lane 4, Minnesota Dev Camp, lane 5, Undine, and lane 6, Undine as well. Right now, a nice camera shot of lane 1, fighting right through those geese. That's Samuel Lindsay in the bow and James McCullough in the 2-seat.
Those geese, you know, Colleen, I think I'm going to have to actually sign off right now, and I'm going to go take care of those geese. I'm not going to personally go up there and take care of those
Not
geese.
for finals.
I've had enough of this.
Go get them. Kyle says he's fighting geese, but he is getting ready to race, folks. So we're excited to call that one in just a little bit. And Kyle now hopping out of the commentary box to go race. I am happy to be joined by Art Post in the commentary team. Thank you for joining me, Art.
Hi, Colleen. Is this on?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay.
You got it.
Great to be here. Wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Wonderful. And now coming into the final 300, 250 meters or so, the men's elite senior lightweight double. Lanes 1 and 2 definitely out ahead. That's the Vesper and the Osprey shells. And giving slight advantage maybe to the Vesper shell out of lane 1.
And then it looks like a tight battle in 5 and 6, probably with an edge to lane 6 now for the bronze.
Yep. And Vesper now making a really nice push again, closest to shore here out of lane 1.
Yep, they're lengthening out, looking strong to the line.
They look great. Vesper now just shy, just breaking into open water over lane 2. Really nice push. So it's Vesper for the gold, Osprey for the silver. As Undine comes through for the bronze.
Undine in lane 5. And our next eight coming down, approaching the 1,000 meters, will be the women's elite senior 4 final. Riverside Boat Club in lane 1. Michigan will be in lane 2. Lane 3 is the under 19 women's selection camp. Lane 4, Greenwich Composite. Lane 5, Vesper. And lane 6, Riverside. A little early to tell, but we might have a lead in lane 3, the under 19 women's selection camp.
And Art, no surprise, but we have definitely seen some great racing out of that under 19 team, the women's selection camp. Certainly some good racing, and it looks like they are not slowing down here as they come through the early part of this race in the women's elite senior straight 4 final. And it looks like this is a 7-boat final, so we see bow number 7 on the screen right now. Just now moving through the 1,000-meter mark.
And it looks like the selection camp, the under 19 selection camp, has a distinct lead everything else is pretty tight for the silver and bronze medal at this point. Coming into 750 to go.
And now on the screen, it's lane 4, the Greenwich composite boat. Looking very strong as well, but bow number 7 continues to lead. Then Riverside Boat Club, we see Vesper about 1 length behind Riverside.
And the crews are approaching and into the last 500 meters. Looks like the tailwind's kicking up a little bit, a quartering tailwind coming off of lane 6. Very nice quick conditions for the last 500 meters.
Nice little boost at the end is definitely welcome. These crews now just approaching the last 250. Again, the women's elite senior straight 4 final with a really nice push right now from the U19 women's selection camp.
I would say a commanding lead at this point, but a good race for silver. Perhaps Greenwich Composite has a bit of an edge, but it's going to be close. Now Michigan's making a move.
And now several lengths open water win, it's looking like, for the U19 women's selection camp. Beautiful work here in that straight 4. A lot of swing, a lot of press. And they are about to capture the gold, Art.
Yes, they are. And Greenwich has picked up their rate and power. Looks like they've opened up some spacing to take a move into the silver medal spot. Michigan solid in the bronze position. Reacting to that tailwind really separated the crews, it seemed, in the last 500 meters. And followed by Riverside, Vesper, and another Riverside crew in the outside. So again, gold to the under 19 women's selection camp. Very exciting from the youngsters in the elite senior 4. What a future they have.
I know. I'm sure there's a lot of college coaches scouting out these races right now.
Go get them, coaches.
Yeah. And already underway, it's the men's elite senior straight 4. So same event on the men's side. And it looks like a clean start across the board.
Hard to tell in the second 500 whether there's any separation. In lane 1, we have the under 18.
Under 18,
Under 18 high performance team, not 19. Miami Beach in lane 2, Mendota, lane 3, GMS from Connecticut in lane 4, Michigan in lane 5, and Mendota out in Wisconsin in lane 6.
And getting a nice shot here on the camera of lane 1. That's the under 18 high performance group. So as always, great to see the youth in this event. They had a nice start, a quick start, and it looks like so far they're really able to hold that. They're now coming through the 1,000. That's the U18 high performance group. It's Henry Kuntz in the 4 seat, Augustus Nordmeyer in the 3 seat, Kuhn Regan in the 2 seat, and Adam Montoya in the bow. And a bit of a battle now, though. We can see a bit of a surge from lane 3. That's Mendota making a nice push in the body of the race. We see a lot of swing, those red oars moving back and forth.
That's the Mendota Shell out of lane 3. And as you said, Art, out of Madison, Wisconsin, rowing out of the Wisco Boathouse. What a battle happening behind them right now, though.
Might be an edge to Miami Beach, but very, very close racing. High performance team is right there also.
And great to see a second Mendota Shell in this event as well. So that's the Mendota B boat. They're out of lane 6. Right now running a length or a little bit more behind their teammates in lane 3. But a lot of power out of the Mendota Shell in lane 3 as these crews now approach just about 500 meters to go, maybe a little bit less. For the men's elite senior straight 4, it's a race for medals, and Mendota right now out of lane 3 chasing the gold.
Yes, Mendota looks to be pushing out, but everyone else really bunched up. Probably an edge to lane 2, Miami Beach right now. Rowing out of the Shane Water Sports Center, a great place to visit for all you northerners who want to get a little rowing in the dead of winter. I swear by it myself. And an occasional manatee will come up to the dock.
I'll take it. And here we go. It's the last 250 for the men's elite senior straight 4.
Big move from the under 18 high performance team in lane 1. Lane 5 also making a move. Can be very tight for the silver and bronze here.
But there goes Mendota now in their final 20 strokes. Looks like they've taken both a rate and pressure shift as they start to break away from the rest of the field. It's the lane 3 Mendota boat, but man, what a race for silver right now going on between lanes 1 and 2. The Miami Beach crew looks like they will take the silver. Lane 1's on the move though, that's the under 18. Perhaps too tight to tell.
You can tell by the horns the very, very tight racing for the silver and bronze.
Guys, was that U18 for third?
And back up at the start, and even a little bit further than that, we have the next race underway. It's the men's elite senior lightweight 4 final.
It's like it's a 3-boat race, yes. TBC Racing, Thompson Boat Club in 2, lane 3 Michigan, and lane 4 Minnesota Development Camp. Still maybe just crossing 500 in. We've been informed that there are only 2 boats coming down by better eyes than we have.
So it's a duel. Suddenly it's a duel. And you know what?
Right.
Sometimes the
Henley
racing.
style racing.
Henley style racing. Sometimes that's very, very true, right? And well timed right after the Henley Regatta. Sometimes that style racing can be really just as fun as a 6-boat or a 7-boat final. Slightly different strategy. You know, maybe these crews didn't know it was going to be a 2-boat final. I'm not quite sure, but definitely even more so than a 6-boat race, advantage to getting out and being able to really see the competition and have that advantage to be able to see what's behind you, because again, there's just one competitor.
But unlike at Henley, I don't think the referees are going to let the lead crew ease into the other lane.
No.
No, that would be that'd be un-American.
No, I don't think so either. And there's no booms really to keep them honest. So. But it does look like the lane in the middle has scratched, so I'm going to say that's TBC in the Minnesota Dev Camp right now on the water. But we'll see as the camera zooms in just a bit. So I'll correct myself. Right now we see in the picture that's the Michigan Rowing Association in lane 3. So Michigan on the water.
So it would be Minnesota in lane 4.
So through the 1,000 now, a nice shot of Michigan Rowing Association in the men's elite senior lightweight straight 4. In the bow seat, that's Ashwath Maruan-Ganand. In the 2 seat, Michael Confon. In the 3, Stuart McDonald. And in the 4 seat, Nicholas Taylor. Beautiful shot there. Now in one of the more challenging parts of the race, the third 500, preparing and setting themselves up for the sprint, again with a nice advantage in this 2-boat race as they can see the competition behind them. Now just coming into the picture, that is lane 4, the Minnesota Dev Camp.
Minnesota is pushing it, but they have almost a length of open water to make up. Michigan looks relaxed and in control at this point. As they both are about to get hit by the quartering tailwind, we'll see if that affects things. But
tailwinds are probably especially fun as a lightweight. They go a little quicker down the course.
oh, they must love that.
And nice too that in this dual race, this is a pretty tight race as far as duels go. So great to see that the Minnesota Dev team maintaining that contact. And really, as we approach the last 500 meters, there is still water. Right now, Michigan, as you say, has that relaxed and solid pace, Art, but still time. So we'll keep an eye on these crews as they come into the last 250.
There is still room for a lead change, but we are running out of that room over the next 20 strokes. Still no change as the winds pick up.
And a beautiful push from lane 3. It's Michigan right now in the position to take the gold. Now breaking into a strong open water lead over the Minnesota Dev Camp right now in their final 20 strokes or so. A lot of send through this tailwind and pretty clean blade work.
Yeah, Minnesota had a nice push, but looks like at this point it's fallen well short of the goal. But still a silver medal awaits them.
And Minnesota now coming through the line. That was the men's elite senior lightweight straight 4 final.
And the next race is on the course, which is the women's elite senior 4 with final. Lane 1 is Vesper, if all are aboard. Lane 2, Riverside. Columbus Development Camp in lane 3. Lane 4 is the women's under 19 selection camp. Riverside B in lane 5, edging out Riverside A in the semis, and Thompson Boat Center would be in lane 6 if all are aboard. Yep, and it looks like they all are in, so we have a 6-boat race. Just coming into the second 500, still very competitive, perhaps with an edge to lane 3 and lane 4, lane 3 Columbus Development Camp, lane 4 the under 19 women's selection camp.
And we've seen some great racing out of the Columbus Development Camp. This boat includes in this Coxed 4, the women's elite senior Coxed 4, Coxon and Jolly Fernandez, bow seat Sierra Sidris, 2 seat Julia Mixlevich, 3 seat Madeline Perrette, and the 4 seat stroking the boat, it's Rose Carr. So a nice push right now from the Columbus Development Camp. And again, we've seen some great racing in several different categories from that crew, from that group. And And the field starting to separate just a little bit here. Looks like Riverside, open water back to Riverside from that Columbus crew. It's Riverside in lane 2, and we see Vesper now in the screen in lane 1. So Vesper and the Columbus Dev Camp maintaining contact here, but advantage still with the Columbus Development Camp over Vesper in lane 1.
And it looks like Riverside has really lengthened, almost taken their rate down and opened up by lengthening out and taking nice long strokes, maybe a beat or two under the rest of the field, which is a thrill to be able to do as a rower, to take it down and move out.
And we see just the hat of Coxon and Jolly Fernandez out of the Columbus Development Camp. So these bow loaders, as we've mentioned this weekend, the coxswain is actually laying down. So he or she is steering from the bow with kind of a stick that they'll move right and left. Ideally in this situation, you'd just be holding it nice and straight, especially in a direct tailwind. So you really just see the heads of the coxswains kind of peeking out. It's a much more aerodynamic place for them to be in rather than sitting up in the stern. And that's exactly what we see right now. So it's still Columbus leading, and a nice push from the U19 women's selection camp in lane 4.
Up. Yes, they're making a charge. And the race is coming into the last 500. It's down to a 2-boat race for gold. Columbus in lane 3. Selection camp, the under-19 juniors in lane 4.
And approaching the last 300 meters, just shy of the red buoy zone. A nice push from Columbus and from the U19 women's selection camp. It is a race for the gold right now. And all of these crews moving into the last 250.
And probably Vesper and Riverside fighting it out for the bronze. Vesper in lane 1, Riverside in lane 5.
And a nice push from Columbus, though. They still hold the lead here as we come through the very last 20 strokes or so of this race. The Columbus Development Camp, steered by Coxon and Jolly Fernandez, right now in a position to take the gold. Over lane 4, U19 women's selection camp. Though the selection camp maintains their contact here, it does look to be Columbus Dev Camp to take it by just a length, maybe open water, Art.
You're right, just about a seat of open water. We've got a great race for bronze here. The edge probably with Vesper in lane 1 over Riverside. Vesper's taking the rate way up. And that quartering tailwind can help the inside lanes a little bit in the last 500. And it's Vesper with the bronze medal. Vesper Boat Club.
And just coming through the line now in their final strokes to round out the women's elite senior Cox 4. Already up at the line. We'll switch the cameras in just a moment. The men's elite senior 4 is underway. And we see them now in the camera. That's Nyack in lane 1, Cal Berkeley Dev Camp in lane 2, Greenwich lane 3, Seattle area lane 4, Mendota lane 5, and Mendota lane 6.
Looks like the 6 boats are pretty competitive in the second 500. possibly a slight edge to lanes 3, lanes 4. Coming into 1,000 meters, we'll get a better shot.
Definitely looks like Nyack is out there and the Cal Berkeley Dev Camp as well. But right now, as the camera zooms in, we can see lanes 2, 3, and 4. So that's Cal Berkeley, Greenwich, and Seattle right now in the men's elite senior Cox 4. I would say maybe slight advantage to Cal Berkeley, Greenwich right with them, and actually the second I say that, I'll correct myself. It is Nyack in lane 1 right now who is leading the pack. Again, we see the coxswain's head up. That's Coral Kasdan of the Nyack Shell. Lane 1 leading the men's elite senior 4 final at the moment.
Yeah, they've pushed out to nearly a 1-length lead.
And a nice shot of the Greenwich Shell in lane 3, the Mendota in lane 6. But panning up to our leaders perhaps in just a moment on the camera. Nope. And now approaching the 500-meter mark to go. Again, keeping an eye on that Nyack Shell out of lane 1. The Cal Berkeley Dev Camp out of lane 2. Definitely a battle happening there as these crews come towards the last 300 meters or so to round out the men's elite senior Cox 4 final.
It looks like it is getting tighter. Nyack probably still holding a lead. Then lane 4 in Seattle, moving strong, moving very strong. Now we approach 250, Nyack lane 1, Berkeley back in lane 2, Greenwich is lane 3, Seattle pushing, but right now in the silver position, lane 5, and lane 6 Mendota, lane 5 making a push for a bronze medal.
And keeping an eye right now on lane 1 Nyack and lane 4 Seattle.
Seattle's really laying down some strokes here. They
Really
may have pushed
nice
into
push.
the lead.
Beautiful last 400 meters out of Seattle. They'll capture the gold, Nyack for the silver, and Greenwich to round out the podium out of lane 3 for the bronze.
That was a great push in the last 20 by Seattle. Really threw down some strokes. Very exciting racing.
And again, we are on 5-minute centers right now due to the storm delay, which is why we're moving through these races a little bit quicker than we might normally. So we're already back up at the start of the Women's Elite Senior Quad. This is Vesper in lane 1, another Vesper Shell lane 2, Orion in lane 3. We saw Emma Hopkins in the double not long ago. Nyack lane 4, OKC in lane 5, and Penn AC lane 6.
A lot of veteran racers in this boat. There's a Vesper boat in lane 1 that is primarily lightweight scullers, where the Vesper in lane 2 are some Vesper members, Solveig Imsdahl, who's been racing a number of races today, Catherine Reddick has been racing at Vesper for years, a wonderful sculler, Julia Lonchar and Shannon Kaplan, Vesper board member and longtime team captain. If this was a age handicap, they would have a huge advantage, I think, over Vesper lane 1. And certainly they have have a big edge on Savvy. And in lane 6, we have a Pen AC quad, which is primarily lightweight national team hopefuls, Jessica Hine, Carla Stawicki, Catherine Shiro, and Rosa Kemp.
So some good Philly representation in this race for sure, and a nice shot right now. We can see the V of the Vesper unis next to, let's see, over in lane 1 and lane 2. So a nice shot right now of the 2 Vesper shells, it looks like, Art. That's lane 1 and lane 2.
That's right, they are pretty close to each other.
And it looks like advantage to lane 1 of the Vesper shells over lane 2 by about a half a length.
Right now, the edge in the race looks like lane 6. Pen AC, lightweight combination quad there, has really pushed out.
Yeah, really nice push from that Pen AC shell in the last few hundred meters. All of these crews now in the third 500. Definitely a challenging part of the race. We see lane 2, that Vesper crew really starting to push out, just shy of breaking open water over lane 3 Orion. Although Orion may have an answer. We see bow seat Megan Varcourt looking over at their stern. So Orion really maintaining their contact here. I think this is going to be a very exciting final 500 meters, and they're just crossing through to that part of the race now. So a great shot of the lane 2 Vesper crew next to the lane 3 Orion shell. We'll have a better sense of margins here shortly as the camera zooms out and or these crews get a little bit closer. OKC lane 5 maybe slightly off the pace from some of our leaders, the Vesper and Orion shells. These crews now approaching about 300 or so meters to go, 350 to go for the women's elite senior quad final.
And the Vesper quad in the middle of the screen, doing it more with technique and length, not quite rowing as high a rate as the crews around them. And good for them is Vesper in lane 1 and Orion in lane 3. And that Pen AC way out in lane 6, you can't see them in their screen. They look like they have a pretty comfortable edge right now. A lightweight group from Pen AC. But they don't have the advantage of the tailwind out there, so we'll see if anyone can make a move.
And a really nice push from Vesper in lane 2. Now coming into the final 20-30 strokes. Beautiful push from Vesper in lane 2. Complete command of this race as they come through to take the gold in the women's elite senior quad. What a press there.
And that's Vesper in silver, Pen AC in gold.
So correction, Pen AC to take that. A really nice job out of lane 6, the Pen AC.
And the more senior of the 2 Vesper quads in second. Ariane is, I believe it's so it's, again, that's Pen AC in gold. Vesper lane 2 is in second. Vesper lane 1 in third. And on the course, we have the men's elite senior quad final.
Nice shot right now of lanes 3 and 2. Lane 3 is Penn AC, lane 2 Riverside Boat Club. Looks like Penn AC just pressing back to push Riverside behind them at the 1,000-meter mark. But about a length, maybe a little bit less than that, 3/4 of a length ahead of them is the OKC High Performance Training Center out of lane 1, although margins might be a little bit tighter now as we see the camera come around. In fact, advantage to Penn AC out of lane 3. Lanes 4 and 1 really maintaining contact there, so the Penn AC B boat in lane 4.
Very nice sculling coming down in the lead boats in this event. The first U.S. National Championships was raced in this course in 1975, and one of the two of us, I don't believe it was you, was in this event back
It's not
then.
me.
Good guess.
It's not me, Art.
Well, they look a lot faster than I think whatever I was in back then.
Yeah, exactly. You do yours, because by the time I say something.
Well, really nice work from those two Penn AC shells as we come into the last stretch of the race. So that's Penn AC in lane 3 and then the Penn AC B boat in lane 4. We saw them maintaining contact, the Penn AC B maintaining contact with Penn AC A in lane 3. We'll see as they get a touch closer how those margins have changed, if at all, coming into 2:50 to go.
As the quads would in a tailwind, the rates are really getting up there right now. We're probably going to see boats hitting 40 strokes a minute, coming down to the last 20 strokes here. Lane 1 is making a charge, picking up that nice tailwind coming off the far bank. It's going to be a nice race here for the last 20 strokes between Oklahoma, Penn AC, and Penn AC.
And we can see hear the Penn AC chants from the shore right now, urging their teammates on. What a finish from these two shells in lanes 3 and 4. Very, very tight racing out of Penn AC. Advantage to lane 3 by a half a length over lane 4. OKC not to be left out for the bronze. And a good push from Riverside Boat Club in lane 2. Nice sprint over there as well.
And Undine and New York AC finishing out.
And we are getting down to the last kind of handful of races. Somewhere out there, our buddy Kyle Peabody is warming up. Maybe they're just launching out of the Vesper boat.
They're so experienced, maybe they're not even launching. They're
Yeah.
just going to jump in the boat.
They're going to jump in. They're going to hot seat it up at the line. I think you're right.
Swimming right out to
Yeah,
a
why
boat
not?
that's waiting for
They
them.
don't need to warm up.
That's right. Our next race is a 2-boat race.
Yeah.
The Women's Elite Senior Lightweight Quad between New York AC in lane 3 and Vesper in lane 4. Women's Elite Senior Lightweight Quad final. Still just finishing up the first 500 meters of the race. And on the screen, it does look like Vesper has a good lead over New York AC.
And in the Vesper shell, it is bow seat Rachel Pierce, 2-seat Bailey Greenslet, 3-seat Marilyn Garberg, and in the 4-seat Gabby Hebden Pearl.
And in the New York AC boat, we have Jacqueline Hall in bow, Alexandra Arluna in 2, Carly Glickenhaus in lane 3 in the 3-seat, and Maura Flanagan stroking the boat.
And Art, I think you're right. A really nice push from the Vesper shell, and it's working for them, this race cadence. We can see from this shot starting to take more water from the Nyack crew. A really strong, powerful rhythm coming out of that boat right now. And it's working because they are now an open water lead back to Nyack in lane 3.
Vesper is at a very comfortable 32, indicating they've got a good level of confidence at this point that the last 1,000 meters is going to go their way.
So as we said earlier, a little bit of a slightly different strategy with dual racing as they come through the 1,000. So the name of the game is just to keep your head up and keep pushing your one competitor back. That's exactly what Vesper's doing right now, and they're doing it well.
It's a comfortable feeling not having to swivel your head to look out of the boat. Vesper rowing with a hodgepodge of blade colors.
Yes, they are.
I think they've used the blades from some of the high schools that are rowing out of the club. All blades get used at club nationals for the local clubs. So many boats in the water, so many scullers.
And moving through the third 500, approaching the 500-meter mark to go. It is Vesper Boat Club now in clear command of this race. In fact, having just passed the 500 to go, now in the last quarter of this race.
And New York is rowing a 33. Vesper's probably taken their rate down. No, actually they've bumped it up to a 33. Vesper's decided the last race for them of the day. Let's see if they can open up the margin nicely and perhaps compare their time to some of their teammates.
You know, I was keeping track of the clubs that were picking up gold medals earlier today, and I've kind of lost track, but I do know that Vesper has picked up quite a few, and they are well on their way to claim the gold in this women's elite senior lightweight quad final. As you said, looking very strong and comfortable at this race cadence now in the last 20 or so strokes and the very last stretch of this race.
Well, Vesper Boat Club has taken pride in the last few years of going for and often winning point trophies at club nationals, and this year it's like no other. Like all the others, they're racking up some points.
And Vesper now coming through the line to take the gold medal in the women's elite senior lightweight quad final. Well done, Vesper. And Nyack now coming through their final 20 strokes or so. A job well done by Nyack, again in this two-boat final. And we see Nyack now with a slight lift in the rate for their very final stretch. A great job to the New York Athletic Club in the women's lightweight senior quad in their final few. So Nyack to take second and the silver.
And we already have on the screen the next race, the men's elite senior lightweight quad. Also, coincidentally, looking to be a two-boat race between Undine and Lane 3 and Nyack, New York Athletic Club, in Lane 4. The Undine crew of Joseph Sapola, Matthew Ryan, James Konopka, and Dylan Hartwick. The New York Athletic Club in Lane 4, Eamon Hanley, Reed Marlowe, Pat Salvatore, and Ryan Harding. And they're still pretty close, looking like New York Athletic Club probably has an edge here in the Henley style racing. Undyne's making a push. They're not going to go down easily. The Undyne crew of Philadelphia area scullers. Closing the gap a bit to New York Athletic Club.
Legs up. Watch us clear.
And it will be New York Athletic Club with open water over Undyne.
Mark. Mark.
And getting into some of the big boats next, so we'll round out the rest of the program in these final 3 races back up into the 8, starting with the men's elite senior lightweight 8 final. It's Vesper Boat Club in lane 2, Nyack lane 3, St. Catharines lane 4, and Riverside out of lane 5. Again, the men's senior lightweight 8 4-boat final. So we see a nice shot on the camera of the early part of the race. Little bit of chop, but definitely something that big boats for sure can handle. And really all of these competitors, we've got quite nice conditions.
Right now at the 1,000, from this angle, it looks like St. Catharines has a decided edge over the other 3 crews, Vesper, New York, and Riverside.
And a nice shot right now of Vesper out of lane 2.
Now, Vesper looks like they are definitely in contention. Moving well here, taking advantage of the winds and the inside. Now it's hard to tell, but Vesper may have pushed into the lead.
All of these crews now in the critical third 500, getting ready to press into the last 500. A nice shot of Vesper, who's leading lane 4, St. Catharines, I believe. Although it's looking like it's getting closer as the camera gets a little more aligned. It may well be St. Catharines. In fact, it is St. Catharines with an advantage over Vesper, Art, as you had said earlier. So St. Catharines sitting up on Vesper.
But Vesper has moved up, so we'll see if that trend continues or if St. Catharines can push back out.
And Riverside perhaps a little bit off the pace here. They sit back about an open water back to Nyack running in 3rd. So keeping an eye on St. Catharines, who looks to be leading with Vesper in 2nd. And these crews now coming into the last 300 meters.
I think Vesper has a bit of an edge at this point. It's still very competitive, but Vesper looks like they now have taken a push ahead of St. Catharines.
And of course, both of these boat clubs put out great lightweights, so not surprising to see Vesper and St. Catharines both getting work done now in the final 250. It's going to be a tight one, though, for the gold.
St. Catharines is moving back. They are definitely moving back.
St. Catharines has kicked up the rate. We see a nice lift from that shell right now into the last 20 strokes or so. It does look to be St. Catharines over Vesper in lane 2, but what a race. It's St. Catharines right now over Vesper. Vesper running in 2nd.
Vesper, St. Catharines at a 44.
St. Catharines over Vesper by about a half a length.
Maybe just a deck.
You think less than that, maybe
I-
just a deck. Hard to say from this angle.
Hard to say.
And Nyack now coming in for third, followed by Riverside Boat Club and their final few strokes.
Mark.
So our next race is the Women's Elite Senior 8 Final. Potomac, lane 1, Vesper in lane 2, Michigan lane 3, lane 4 is the under 19 women's selection camp, lane 5, CRI, and lane 6 is Riverside.
So of this bunch, Michigan posted the fastest time trial time. So keeping an eye on lane 3, Michigan Rowing Association, and lane 4, the under 19 women's selection camp. Of course, it's anybody's race. It's very early in the race, but I expect those two crews to be particularly fast. And now moving through the first 1,000. We'll get a sense of margins in just a moment. Right now we see lanes 1, 2, and 3. That's Potomac, Vesper, and Michigan. Pretty tightly packed, I'd say. And a nice start from Potomac too. So right now we are looking at the bows of lanes 1, 2, and 3, Potomac, Vesper, and Michigan.
Hard to tell who's ahead, although I would give the edge to Michigan right now. Of that 3.
And I'd agree, it does look like Michigan has a slight edge.
Let's see when the under 19 selection camp comes
Yeah.
into the screen. Yeah, they are right there also.
So a bit tough to say at the moment. On your screen on the left side is the under 19 women's selection camp. We'll now pan over to CRI in lane 5.
They look like they're back just a little bit behind the selection camp from this angle.
I would say so, yep.
And Riverside out in lane 6 is back a little further at this point.
So now panning back over to lanes 1, 2, and 3, it looks like Vesper has fallen off maybe just a little bit, which means Potomac and Michigan are right in the thick of it out of lanes 1 and 3. An advantage, it's looking like, to Michigan now, crossing through the 1,000.
They definitely have taken a bit of an edge over lanes 1 and 2.
And now we can see a nice picture here of lane 3, Michigan. That's coxswain Hannah Broadland right now, urging her crew on, currently holding that gold medal position with less than 1,000 meters to go.
And lane 4, the under 19 selection camp, probably the closest crew on their heels at this point.
So the third 500, we see Michigan really stepping into it. A nice, powerful swing coming out of that shell, and that rhythm is working for them. We see coxswain Hannah Broadland looking over her shoulder. She's got open water, then back to the under 19 women's selection camp, then open water really back to the rest of the field, which is lane 2 Vesper, lane 1 Potomac, then back to CRI in lane 5, although probably pretty close between lanes 5 and 1, which is CRI and Potomac, then back to Riverside.
But as they approach 400 meters to go, it is Michigan. Michigan over the under-19 women's selection camp, pushing out towards the gold medal. Probably still a length over the under-19 selection camp. That's Michigan.
And less than 300 meters to go in the women's elite senior 8 final. Definitely looking to be Michigan, as we saw on the screen not long ago. They were holding that open water advantage over the under-19 women's selection camp. Of course, in the red buoy zone, this is where really we see the best of the sprinting in a 2,000-meter race. So we'll keep an eye on lanes 3 and 4 chasing after the gold medal, leading the pack up there, and it does look to be Michigan.
Yeah, Michigan looks very strong here. The margin is tightening, but Michigan so far looks too strong to relinquish that lead.
And a nice lift in the stroke rate from the under-19 women's selection camp shell, but it may be too late. Michigan continues to hold by about a half a length, just about 3/4 of a length. It is Michigan out of lane 3 right now to take gold in the women's elite senior 8 over second place under-19 selection camp.
And Vesper Boat Club looks solidly in the bronze medal position. Potomac and CRI fighting it out for 5th. With Potomac just ahead of CRI and Riverside in 6th.
And we have some fabulous Michigan fans here on the shore cheering for the Michigan shell that just won. So big congratulations to Michigan, who again just took the gold in the women's elite senior 8 final. A job well done, start to finish. They got out early, they held. And up next, this is our last event of the day, Art. It's the men's elite senior 8 final with Kyle Peabody, who has been co-announcing with me most of the weekend in lane 4 in the 7 seat.
And you can tell this is the last race of the day because all the fans are on their feet.
Yes, they are.
Some are packing up their chairs, but most are cheering the crews coming down.
And it's going to be an exciting final in lane 1, Potomac, lane 2, Mendota, lane 3, Michigan, lane 4, Vesper, lane 5, Riverside, and lane 6, Riverfront.
So rowing in the boat with Kyle is quite a group, which includes some rowers that are just out of high school and some very experienced rowers. Tyler Nace, who has been on the U.S. lightweight team a number of times, is rowing with Kyle. Jason Reed, the ageless Olympian Jason Reed. Jonathan Kierkegaard, who has been our U.S. single sculler from Vesper Boat Club. And quite a mix. We hear that they practiced during their heat to get here, and that's been it. So we'll see if practice makes perfect or if they can be knocked off by Potomac, Mendota, Michigan, Riverside, or Riverfront.
And right now, picking up the camera shot, I believe, of lane 1, that is Potomac. So on the far side in lane 1, holding a nice steady rhythm. They lead Mendota in lane 2, and Michigan on the move.
Definitely ahead of them. Definitely Michigan looking to match the results of the women's 8, trying to win dual national championships in the 8.
So wonderful shot here of this 8's racing. The 8's races are always so fun to witness, and it's got to be so fun to be in the thick of that. You hear the noise of the coxswains, just a lot of fun. And right now, Michigan making the best of it in lane 3.
They have a lead over the field into the third 500. and looking strong and comfortable.
And we can see now Michigan holds an open water lead. Very exciting in the third 500.
Probably Vesper in fourth, Mendota in third, Vesper in second. Yeah, Vesper would be in second, and the white blades.
Yep. So there we see Kyle in the 7th seat. From the commentary box to the race course. Vesper doing a nice job holding that 2nd place position, but Michigan totally in control of this race right now as we come into the last 500. And we hear some Mendota cheers for the Wisconsin team out of lane 2. A lot of work going on right now on the course across the field. Michigan out in the lead, Vesper right there. All of these crews in the thick of it though. Mendota not to be left out.
The race right now is for the silver medal between Mendota of Wisconsin and Vesper. Right now, Mendota has the edge, but both are trailing a very strong Michigan crew.
Beautiful work from Michigan right now with an open water lead over the rest of the field. It looks like Vesper is still holding strong for the silver. Perhaps challenged by Potomac. It is Michigan for the gold now, and their final 10 or 15 strokes. A job well done by the Michigan crew. Look out for Potomac in lane 1. Or Mendota rather in lane 2.
So it's Michigan, Mendota, and Vesper.
And a very exciting final for the men's elite senior 8. A job well done by Michigan. They took first, Mendota in second, and Vesper to take third and the bronze. Congratulations to all of our athletes, all of our competitors, and a huge thank you to all of the volunteers, to USRowing, the staff, all of the parents, family, supporters, friends. And this concludes another successful Club National Championship, the 2018.
Yeah, it's a testament to all the volunteers and all the officials to wait through a 2-hour delay and to get this perfect, although breezy tailwind weather at the end of the day, but wonderful way to finish off the day.
And we will sign off. Thanks very much. Take care. See you next year.